So I've got Larisse helping me from Northern Beaches Mums Group. Thank you, Larisse. So if there are any comments, if you want to put them in the live chat, and I will go back and have a look at them at the end of the presentation, because I'm not sure how to do it while I'm doing it through StreamYard. But Larisse is also going to put a link at the top of the comments to a couple of special offers that we're providing for the Northern Beaches community, mums community afterwards. So I'll get started because I know it's getting on. I don't know about you, but usually at 8 o'clock I'm sitting on the couch in my pajamas at the moment watching Netflix. So, but it's wonderful to be here with other people, even if I can't see you all, but knowing that you're here, and wanted to share some really hopefully valuable and probably timely information about how to understand and manage stress. So a little bit about me. I'm Katherine Craig. I'm the Learning and Development Consultant at Impact HR. We're a HR services and services organisation. We work with small and medium businesses, and we offer HR support and advice, and we also provide training and coaching, and that's my side of the business. So I'm a little bit about me as well. I'm also a mum of 2 young girls. I'm a single mum, so totally understand probably a lot of the stress that many of us face managing those sort of different responsibilities of our life. I'm also a bit of a psychology geek, so I've done a master's in coaching psychology. I also have a BA in psychology, and I'm really passionate about helping people, in particular my clients, support their well-being as a foundation for having more energy and motivation to go out and achieve what you want to in life, whatever that looks like for you. So tonight I'm going to help you understand why we act in certain ways to stress, and give you some tools and tips to help you manage your stress response. So before we get started, though, I wanted to just start with this really helpful breathing technique, which I share with everyone. And it's something that you might have heard of before. It's called box breathing. It's used in a lot of armed forces or police to help them manage stress and be focused. And it's a great way anytime you want to really shift your energy or sort of come down and not be so stressed. So anyway, sorry, I should have done this myself before I started. So I'll just talk you through it first, and then I'll guide you through it. So box breathing is called box breathing because we're breathing in slowly, counting to 4, and then we hold our breath for 4 at the top, then we exhale for 4 to the count of 4, and then we hold it for 4 again. And you can repeat that as often as you like to help you, and it will really help downregulate that stress response. So if you want to try it with me now, it would be a really good way also to leave everything behind from the busyness of today, or stress if you've been homeschooling, and just help you be really relaxed and focused on tonight. So if you want to close your eyes, or you can keep them open if that's more comfortable, and then just inhaling to the count of 4, 3, 2, 1, and holding it for 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhaling for 4, 3, 2, 1, and then holding for 4, 3, 2, 1. And then when you're ready, you can just open your eyes slowly. I know that was just a very quick, brief one, but I suggest to my clients, if they are feeling particularly stressed, you might want to set a reminder on your phone or your Apple Watch every hour to just stop and do maybe 3 or 4 of those box breathing circuits. So and just noticing if that did shift how you're feeling tonight as well. So I'm just starting with this quote. It's by a man called Waylon Lewis. He says, "Fearlessness is not avoiding the ups and downs of life. It's sitting with them, listening, bowing to them, and then moving forward." So it's that understanding that life is always going to be ups and downs, and rather than resisting it or trying to avoid it, it's just sitting with it and just going with it and accepting what's happening, but keeping on moving forward. So jumping into, also we're going to be covering quite a lot tonight, but this will be recorded so you can go back on it. And also if there's anything that you want to ask me about afterwards, you're more than welcome to get in touch. I'm very happy to help you. So understanding, first of all, what's your stress response? So the people will react to different stresses in different ways. So something that's stressful to one person might not be stressful to somebody else. So that's why I've got this list of different things, like starting a new job. To some people might be really exciting. To some people, they might be full of dread. So a tight deadline. Some people love deadlines. They thrive on them, where other people will just fall to pieces. Hot weather, being forced to work from home, all those sorts of things. So trying to understand that the idea of stress, it's not actually the stressor or the thing that is stressful, it's our perception of whether or not we can handle what's happening, or whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So it's the stories that we create in our head about what's going on. And you probably have heard of this fight or flight response. There's also fight, flight, or freeze. So that's our bodies. It's a very primitive way, or part of our brain called the amygdala, which is our stress response. So in the past, there was real threats. You might have been eaten by the saber-toothed tiger, and so you had to be able to fight or flee, or freeze, or hide from it. But nowadays, we very rarely have an actual physical threat. It's more likely to be what we're thinking is a threat, but our brain perceives that threat as being dangerous as the original saber-toothed tiger. So, and when our body does when we do activate that amygdala or that stress response, our body, all these things in our body move towards setting our body into ready to be able to flee from what's going on. Sorry, I'm a bit tongue-tied tonight. So, your heart beats faster so you can run faster, your breath is fast and shallow, the pupils of your eyes expand, blood rushes around, and you use a lot of energy. So that's when your body is in that sympathetic nervous system, you're revved up, preparing to fight, and you probably sort of feel, maybe feel a bit buzzy or whatever, but that's and the cortisol sort of flooding through your body to help you fight or flight. Fight or flight, flee. And when you're stuck in that sort of stress response for too long, you might notice some of these signs and symptoms of stress may be familiar with you. So cognitive, you may have difficulty concentrating, maybe you're only seeing the negative in a situation, you're constantly worrying, you're anxious. Physical, I know myself, if I'm stressed, sometimes I have an upset tummy. You may feel exhausted, frequent colds. Emotional, you might be irritable, short-tempered, maybe feeling quite overwhelmed or sad. Behavioural, some people eat less, some I eat more. Sleeping too much or too little, procrastinating, self-medicating with alcohol, cigarettes, drugs. So I'm skipping through these quite quickly because I'm aware we only have half an hour and I want to share a lot of information with you tonight. So is all stress bad? So this is quite a well-known stress diagram that I use with my corporate clients or the business clients. So it's called an inverted U shape. And you can see, if you can see on your screen, on your phone it might be small, but it goes up. So you at the top, on the top of the curve, you've got the short-term high stress performance. So that can be really helpful if you need to get something done, and you're in a short-term sort of span. But if you stay in that area, in that sort of space for too long where you're highly stressed and using all your resources, then you can tip over into that feeling of overwhelm. And if you stay there too long, you'll reach burnout, which is not a great place to be. So if you can also see this diagram, you'll see there's these little green arrows. So this is this idea of energy renewal and energy expenditure. So being able to move from that high stress feeling back into the recovery, so not using so much of your physiological resources to be in that stress fight or flight response, coming back to rest, and then being ready to get back into that high stressed or using a lot of energy at the top. So if you think of it as like an athlete prepares and they've got that one event, so they go really hard out. If they stayed in that really hard out zone for too long, they'd be exhausted. Their body would wear out. That be no good to them. So they have long periods of rest and recovery after each of those events. So another quote that I wanted to share with you, and this is, if you're interested in learning more about burnout, these two sisters wrote this book, which I haven't read yet, but I heard a fantastic podcast with Brene Brown interviewing these two women. It's really a lot of valuable information in there if you're interested, so I highly recommend listening to it. But they say their theory is that stress is not actually bad, it's being stuck in that stress situation. So going back to that idea of the energy oscillation, going back from being stressed to rest and recovery, being able to get ourselves out of that overwhelmed feeling so that we can enter that rest and recovery. So I'm going to help you with that tonight. So this shows you the opposite of the sympathetic nervous system, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, and it's also sometimes called our rest or relax response. So this is where your body calms down and it comes back into that neutral state. So being able to switch from that sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system is really the key to avoiding long-term burnout and overwhelm. And I'll talk about some ways you can do that. So first of all, thinking about self-care, and a lot of us, when we think of self-care, we're like, oh, we need to have a massage, or I need to go to a tropical island, or and we just hang out till that moment where we can finally relax and take care of ourselves. At the moment we can't do that at all, so we have to think, and we want to be thinking of ways we can build up that resilience and little self-care rituals into our everyday that can help us build the inner strength and resilience against things when situations are stressful. So self-care, I've defined it here as any activity that we do deliberately to take care of our mental, emotional, and physical health. So often we focus on physical health, but mental and emotional health are as important, if not more important, I think, to maintaining good well-being and looking after your stress. So if we start with mental, I've got 3 things I wanted to share with you: circles of control and influence, values, and mindfulness. So the circles of concern and influence, you may have seen this before. At the core, we've got choice. So this is basically you have power over, you always have agency or power over your life. You get to choose how you think, feel, act. And even if it's just switching off for 5 minutes, you have that within your power. And the white circle is your influence. So these are things that you can control yourself in terms of maintaining good mental health. So they're things like what you read, your behavior, what you buy, who you spend time with. That saying of you're the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and your attitude. And then I just wanted to pull out too what you watch, because I became conscious of this last week. I was feeling quite overwhelmed and exhausted, and then I watched I can't remember what it was, some show I started watching. It was a BBC drama, a murder mystery or something, and I just could feel the cortisol from being in that sympathetic nervous system and from going already to being in a state of exhaustion to then watching that and being terrified and wanting to know what was going to happen, very stressed. It didn't do anything for me. So I really recommend, if you are feeling overwhelmed or exhausted, make sure you're watching feel-good things, like it's time to put on that rom-com. Virgin River's a great one. Starstruck's lovely. There's lots of feel-good movies that will help to not switch you into that sympathetic nervous system even more than you already are. And then the green are things we are worried about and stressed about, which we actually have no control over. So that's like COVID, what's actually happening with everybody else, the economy, the news, politics, social media, what's going on social media. But so if you focus on the things you can influence and exercise that choice button, that will start to expand what you're focusing on and how you're feeling, and it will start to sort of push out the area of concern to become less and less if you're focusing on things you can control. So the second part is living your values, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. But it's values help us prioritize what's important. So I've got this. It's a bit of a mess, but this all these different words. So it might be creativity, honesty, family, social intelligence, spirituality, love of learning, leadership, anything that feels really important to you, and understanding what those sort of values are and using them as guiding principles in your life. So A great way to understand what your values are to go to this viacharacter.org. You can do a free test there, and it will help you identify your top values. So when we live our values, it helps us shape our beliefs, attitudes, and behaviour. And research shows that people who live their values have much stronger resilience during times of challenge or difficulty. Okay, and the third part in this mental is mindfulness in the brain. So this is one of the things, this and gratitude, which I'll talk about later, are two things which I really recommend to anybody as a foundation as managing their stress. And the reason why is because it has a huge impact if you can stick at it. And it also actually changes the structure of your brain. So you're not even having to consciously work hard at managing your stress. It changes the way you react to stress so that it becomes automatic. So there's a lot of studies now around how, people that are regular meditators, the amygdala, which I talked about before, starts to shrink, and which is our stress response. So when you'll be less likely to react to something as feeling stressful, and it expands the frontal cortex of your brain, which is our compassion, perspective, learning, things like that. So you can start to, over time, respond to things in a more thoughtful, compassionate way rather than just reacting emotionally to something. Meditation. So people ask what the difference is between meditation and mindfulness. Meditation is the practice that helps you become more mindful in your everyday life. So, you probably all know if there's a ton of apps out there now. Some of the main, Insight Timer is great. It's free. Calm, Headspace. The key is consistency and habit. And like with any kind of habit, you want to start off small and manageable. So I really recommend to people, week 1, do 2 minutes a day. Week 3, week 2, 5 minutes. Week 3, 10 minutes. And then so you're just gradually building up. You only need 10 minutes a day to start to change your brain. So, and the way to think of meditation and that practice for mindfulness is that it's similar to, we go to the gym to get fit. So meditation is our way to become more mindful. And each time a lot of people are hesitant. They think, I can't stop thinking, but thinking is actually a really important part of the practice, because every time you have a thought and you come back to your focus, whether that's your breath or the words that someone's speaking, it's like a bicep at the gym. So it strengthens those neural pathways, so you're able to be more focused and calm in your everyday life. And I've skipped over that. This is a huge subject I've skipped over very quickly. But again, like if you have any questions, please come to me, or there's plenty of information on the internet. Okay, so physical, the three main things really are breath, sleep, nutrition, and exercise. So breath, I've got this belly breathing you may have heard of before. That's really similar. You want to sort of close your eyes and just breathe deeply. And you're breathing right into your belly. And when you're breathing into your belly, the breath expands your belly, and then you hold it for a moment, and then you breathe out slowly. And as you exhale, breathe out, squeeze out all the air from your tummy. You should feel your belly button come against your spine. And hi Lizzie, I'm going to come to that shortly. And then so you want to count to 4 when you're breathing in, and as you're breathing out, you want to do 5 or 6 breaths, because it's that longer exhale which will help you. Lizzie just asked, what's the number 1 suggestion for mums to deal with stress during the current lockdown period? Covering quite a lot, I guess, but I guess it would be, one would be letting go of perfection. I think it's focusing on what you can do. So I guess going back to that circles of concern and influence, and then taking a breath to really taking wherever you've got an opportunity to just go and take a mindful pause and breathe slowly using that belly breath. That will activate the parasympathetic nervous system that we talked about before. So those are probably my 2 top, if you had to, in the moment, think of what you needed to do to help yourself, and just being very kind to yourself. But stay with me. I hope I've got some more things to share with you. Okay, sleep. This is something that can really be impacted when we are feeling stressed. So again, this is not professional advice. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a naturopath or a medical. I've just studied psychology, but these are my personal things that I use when I'm not sleeping well. So this puka tea is amazing. Thanks, Lizzie. I always have an amazing sleep when I drink that tea, and it tastes okay. The Bioceuticals is a great brand of magnesium, this Ultra Muscle Ease. So if you start to take that twice daily, but if you go to the practitioner at a chemist or a health food shop, they'll help you with that. And then Yoga Nidra, which I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but you can find it anywhere, but I suggest, Insight Timer because it's free. It's a great practice. It says yoga, but there's actually no movement. You're lying down. It's basically relaxing all the muscles in your body, and that will help you really tap into that parasympathetic nervous system again, and you should be able to sleep a lot sounder than you would have otherwise. I've also got a URL there to the professionals, which is sleephealthfoundation.org.au, and there's a lot of resources on there if you wanted some help with sleep. Nutrition and exercise, I think we all know what we're supposed to do, but just a reminder, avoiding alcohol, caffeine and sugar is really good if you're feeling anxious or very overwhelmed. Eating as healthy as you can, getting outside and moving. And this key thing I think is really important to remember, especially as women, is thanks, Therese, is that avoiding strenuous exercise. So when you're exhausted, and this is when you're at that sort of overwhelmed or burnout stage, you don't want to be doing a HIIT exercise, HIIT routine or whatever it is, or going hard or running, because your body will be stressed and that will increase the cortisol in your body. You want to be doing gentle movement like yoga, swimming, walking, things to get your heart rate up and get you moving, but things that don't place more stress on you. Okay, emotional. I've got 3 things here. Self-compassion, which, Lizzie, going back to you, I think this is a really, really important one for women in particular. Emotional agility and gratitude. So self-compassion there's a huge body of research on this, and Kristen Neff, who I've noted there, is the lead researcher. She has a website, selfcompassion.org, I think it is, with a huge number of exercises and articles and things you can read. But the premise of self-compassion is 3 steps. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, something bad's happened. For me, when kids were younger, is when I lost it, and maybe I yelled at the kids and I really felt bad afterwards because it wasn't how I wanted to. I wasn't acting in accordance with my values at all, but I was just being human. So number 1 is self-kindness. So this is the idea of treating yourself as you would a best friend. So being non-judgmental, being warm and just using warm and understanding words, talking to yourself can really help. It sounds silly, but it really works. You might want to place a hand over your heart, that skin-on-skin contact, even when it's your own hand, and activates the oxytocin, the love hormone, so it relaxes you. And then you might just talk to yourself as you would a friend, like, I'm sorry you had a bad time. That was, must have felt really awful, whatever, however you might talk to a friend. The other thing to remember is common humanity. So telling yourself or reminding yourself that this is something that happens to everybody. You're not the only one that behaves like this sometimes or that has these awful things happening. And the third thing is mindfulness. So accepting your current experience. So not trying to project into the future, not looking back on the past, just really, or sort of thinking about how things should have been. Like I should be this mother that doesn't lose her mind when her kids, push all her buttons, but just accepting what has happened and being able to sort of move on from it. And this is a lovely illustration for that concept. So, a nice thing to do for others is this woman's thinking she has a lot on her plate right now. She's doing her best, and it's okay that her best isn't perfect. And then a nice thing to do for yourself is to say the same thing, really. So she has a lot on her plate right now. She's doing her best, and it's okay that her best isn't perfect. And I think this is like key to lockdown, right? We're all doing our best. You can't be perfect in your job and perfect in homeschooling or whatever else you've got going on at the moment. Pick what you want to focus on, do really well in one area and on the other, and without trying to be perfect on everything. So I'm going to quickly go through this because we're running out of time. But emotional agility is this Susan David is the major researcher in this area. Fantastic TED talk if you're interested. It'll make you cry, but it's a really good way of understanding our emotions. So it's about recognizing our patterns, so understanding the sort of familiar stories that we tell ourselves when things happen, being able to label your thoughts and emotions. So rather than saying, oh, this person doesn't like me, she's behaved in a certain way and I'm feeling really angry, to sort of saying, I notice, I'm having this feeling that this person doesn't like me, and I'm thinking that I'm angry. So rather than getting right down into it, is sort of being able to step back and look at it. So there's this idea of getting off the dance floor, being up really close to something that's happening, and being able to just go back, step up onto the balcony and look down on what's happening and get a wider perspective. The third is accepting what's going on. So, accepting that we can't we can't change everything. Creating a bit of distance, taking a few breaths, approaching with curiosity and compassion when something happens or when you're feeling a certain way, like, why am I feeling this way? And just going back to that self-compassion. And then what are you acting on your values? So this is when you do have a strong emotional reaction to something, often it indicates that it's a value that's really important to you that's at risk. So perhaps, and I'm going back to the homeschooling and working because that's something that I'm familiar with. If you want to be doing your best in a role and doing, producing really good work and being a good operator, but on the other hand, you've got the stress from trying to manage your kids and making sure they're doing the work, and maybe you feel a bit overwhelmed, then that probably that's because of how deeply you feel about your work. Similarly, if you flip it around and you're feeling overwhelmed and upset about not being able to be there with your kids and being mindful and helping them with their work because you've also got these work pressures, that's because maybe family is very important to you, and being the kind of mother that you think you should be. But so if that makes sense, that's your emotions that are telling you that's the value that's under threat. So, but I wanted to share with you too another way that you can use values, which I've found really helpful. And so for me, I went through a difficult time a couple of years ago when I was separating from my husband, and I chose 3 values that I wanted to focus on. So they were strength, courage, and compassion. So, and if anyone else has been in the situation, there's a lot of emotional triggers. And so anytime that I was having a difficult conversation or feeling really upset about something, or I needed to keep moving, I would just go back to that strength, courage, compassion. And it really helped me, especially the compassion, when I felt like, things didn't always go my way, or people didn't behave in the way that I thought that they should. It really helped me remain true to myself and to respond rather than reacting emotionally to things. Of course, I wasn't perfect, but I think I was a lot better because of that. Teresa just said, so true, hard at the moment to get the balance right. We all deserve kindness. Thanks, Teresa. Okay, gratitude. I just noticed she's got the same blouse as me on. But anyway, so going back to what I mentioned before, gratitude is something I really recommend to everybody to take up as a practice if you are feeling stressed, because and one, again, like it rewires your brains if you do it over time, so it becomes easier. But it's that way of, instead of looking for what's the dangers or the terrible things that are happening in our lives or us in the environment, it rewires our brain to start looking at the good that's in our life. So it also helps to release the dopamine and serotonin, the happy hormones. And if you think of it like a digestive system, so the more junk you put into your body, chocolate, delicious chocolate, snack food, things like that, you don't feel great. Whereas if you put in good, healthy food, you're feeling a lot stronger and healthier and happier. And the same with your brain. So the more good that we think of, or the positive emotions that we can focus on, the better we're going to feel, and the better sort of way we're going to be able to act, think, and feel in ways that are more aligned to who we want to be. So, you probably, if you are familiar with gratitude, there's the 3 good things to write down at every end of the day. Really recommend that you write them down if possible, because that also it helps to hardwire it into your brain rather than just thinking about it. Thinking about it's great too. There's also a lot of great apps. I've got a a link here, the happierhuman.com gratitude app. But if you Google it, you'll find a whole lot. But there's some apps that you can do where you take a photo every day and you write something about it, or so it creates a little electronic diary of things you're grateful for. Okay, and then putting it into action. One is creating a routine, so trying to do it every day. So if we looked at that meditation, even just starting with the 2 minutes a day, then building up to 5 minutes and 10 minutes. You might do it at the beginning of every day, just building it into as a routine as you would your exercise or anything else that you do every day. Habit stacking, so that's thinking of like when you brush your teeth. If we go back to gratitude again, I know I said to write it down, but if you want to, I know some people think of 3 things they're grateful for as they're brushing their teeth. So then you've stacked that onto that habit. Or it could be if you go out walking, I don't know, like self-compassion or something. Sorry, I haven't thought of that one. But and then rewards too. So if you are going to start a exercise or a gratitude practice and you do it really routinely every day for a month, whatever, you might set yourself a little reward at the end of it. Sorry, I flipped through too quickly, but I also had dial up, dial down. So some of those things I will use more often when I am feeling stressed, and then when I'm feeling not so stressed, I might drop them a little bit, but I know that I can dial them up when I really need them. This is a really great thing to do when you are feeling in sort of overwhelmed state, is thinking about bookending your day. So starting and ending your day with a little practice like this. So you might want to lie in bed and just visualize how you want to feel during that day, what sort of emotions you want to have, interactions with other people, what you want to achieve. So you just run through it mentally like a little video in your head, imagining what happens from the minute you get up to then, how you feel when you see your children, to sitting down at your desk and what you're going to do first, and then, maybe what you want to eat. But just running through and imagining sort of how your day would go if it was going well. And then at night, you would do the same thing, but imagining the next morning or the next day, how that's going to go. And it sounds silly, but it actually works. Whenever I do it, I do have a much better and more productive day. I would also suggest, if you're doing this bookending when you are feeling particularly stressed, is, writing down 3 things you're grateful for, and then also 3 things you're looking forward to. So that could be, if you're doing it in the morning, 3 things you're looking forward to that day, and in the evening, 3 things you're looking forward to the next day. So again, that creates the positive emotions. It helps your brain to start thinking about looking for the good that's in your life and really anticipating, looking forward to having some joy and some things that really light you up that next day. Journaling, so writing those things down. And there's also a whole lot of, if you Google, there's a whole lot of different journal prompts you can do. You might want to incorporate some stretching or some mindfulness. You might start that meditation habit, whatever feels right for you. So just creating a little ritual for yourself, especially if you are, you've got young children, you don't have much time to yourself. That could be just your little me time when you can get it, if it's first thing in the morning before the kids wake up, or at night when they're in bed. And even if you want to just flop on the couch and watch TV, I guarantee if you take 5 minutes out to do this, you'll feel a lot better. Okay, and then I've just got this quick self-care toolkit for people, and you might want to take one thing from each of these areas. So they're just different sort of the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. So trying to do one of these things every day, but not if it's adding more pressure, but just these little things will help you feel better too. So the dopamine, it might be completing a task, so feeling like you've done something well, preparing a meal, celebrating little wins in your life. Even if it's, I got out of my tracksuit pants today, whatever it is, it could be big or it could be small, but whatever is meaningful for you. Oxytocin, playing with your dog, listening to music, doing something kind for somebody else. Endorphin, dark chocolate, watching a comedy, laughter. And serotonin is the mood stabilizer, so meditating, exercise, getting out in the sun, making sure you get that vitamin D, and walking in nature. Walking in nature has so many therapeutic benefits, so really recommend doing that if you can too, especially when we're spending so much time in lockdown. So just finishing with this slide, what will be different tomorrow? So repeated attention to our intentions. So being really purposeful about how we create our lives and how we want to feel. So it's starting to rewire our brains to think and help us feel and act in the way that we want it to. So if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments. But just when we're going into that, I just wanted to just let you know about a couple of things we've got to continue to support you if that's helpful. We're running a couple of group coaching programs for the Northern Beaches Mums group. One is Career After Kids, What's Next? So that's to help you if you're thinking about going back to work, or maybe you're thinking of changing careers, whatever it might be, thinking about how you want to, that next sort of part of your life with kids, how you want to manage both things that are important to you. The other part is, I know we have a lot of entrepreneurial mums in this group, so we've also got a group coaching program for small business owners, so that'll be for females. And as a foundation for both of those, we'll be also helping you support your wellbeing, because, as I mentioned before, if you, with all my clients, that's one of the key things we focus on when we're starting a coaching program or training, because if you're not feeling good and you're not, then you won't be able to focus on the things that are important to you. We also, if you are part of a small business, we also offer support and advice, HR advice, and we're a lovely team of mums who, one of the things I love about the Impact HR is we really care about our clients, and we care about the people that work for them. So, and we have expert advice, right? And we think so. So there's going to be, right at the top, if you go to the top of the comments, there's a link to a landing page, which has got a whole lot of information about all of that. It's also got my contact details. Please feel free to contact me. So if there are no questions, I'll just wait a few more minutes for questions. All right, it looks like there aren't any questions. I hope I didn't go too fast, but thank you all very much for being here. It's a privilege to be able to be here and share some of the information that we know helps people with stress. I hope you're all really kind to yourself and keep safe. Thank you. Thanks, Sophia.